Hello, everyone. This is auto asphyxiation. This is Lark.
And Kimberly.
All right, we are. I'm gonna tell you something, Kimberly. I know that I'm not the first person that said that they should consolidate the schools in New Jersey. I know I'm not the first person to have said it. I get that, but I feel like in the modern era, in the 2020s, but we've been saying it here a lot. Now, I'm not saying that other people haven't said it first, but I feel that we have been really talking about this on a really large level in the popular zeitgeist.
Yeah, we talked about it during our City of Essex video episode. Like that was something that we focused on heavily was the consolidation of the school districts.
Yeah, and the thing is this is that I think it's interesting, and I'm not saying that Mikey Sherrill was listening to our show, but in her fiscal budget, she was like saying, oh, okay, number one, the thing is great, is she's funding the schools $12.4 billion, which is more than schools have ever been funded. Um, yeah, I think it's billion. I don't think it's million. I think it's billion. Billion. I think yeah, yeah, okay. I hope that's right. If not, I'd be really embarrassed. Anyway, but more than it's ever been funded. Essentially, since the school act reform, the budget reform, the formula, that is the most it's ever been funded, which is amazing. But even with that, she's like, what we have to do is consolidate the schools. She kind of slipped that in there, and I was like, yeah, exactly. And everybody, like, I don't know how much people were paying attention to that, but I was paying attention to it. I was looking, I was like, oh my gosh, this is huge because
She actually said it.
he actually said it, and people are very much like, I don't know what's like going to happen now. You sent me an opinion piece from NewJersey.com, and the guy was talking about, and that's kind of weird because I had sent an opinion piece about 2 years ago on this very topic. Not saying like I don't know why they didn't publish mine. It's okay. I'm not even bitter about that. Like, I mean, it's okay that I send things to NewJersey.com all the time and they act like they don't get it. That's totally fine because I we have our own publication now, D1011, and it's like more awesome than theirs. Anyway, this is auto asphyxiation. But you sent me that new opinion piece. And you know what though? Let's kind of like throw it over to you because you went to school here. You're from New Jersey. You went to school here. And what are your thoughts on the consolidation? Especially in the D1011 area, East Orange, Essex, Hudson, Passaic, Morristown, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I think that, we see with our school districts right now, the East Orange School District last year had to cut to half days because of teacher shortages and budget shortages. We see what's happening with Montclair. And what I found really interesting also was in that opinion article that I sent you on NJ.com that more than 200 of the 500 school districts enroll fewer than 500 students. So
I mean,
those that's like ridiculous. Like those school districts really should be consolidated to share resources across them because those taxpayers are just bleeding out money to really pay administrative fees.
to pay administrative fees and also to pay for racism. I am just so I'm like, I always say this and people get kind of salty. I always say people in New Jersey are too poor for racism. You don't have the kind of money to participate in the kind of racism that these little school districts are demanding. I remember in LA, we all went to private school because people were so dedicated to like Prop 13. I always bring this up. Prop 13 defunded the schools because people who are racist were like, God damn it, I would rather pay $50,000 a year for private school than share our tax dollars and our resources with people who are not our people.
and with a nice dose of rugged American individualism. And you have what we call local control here in New Jersey,
Exactly. You have lower control, and you're like, I want control over my school district and my neighborhood. But the interesting thing is that I feel that most of local control is typically about the school districts because you look at how much the mayors get paid.
which is usually nothing.
The mayor in Bloomfield gets paid $12,000. Hilarious. And the superintendent gets paid $240,000.
Yes, that's what the average, the state average is $141,000 a year, but some school districts can go up to $320,000 a year.
Yeah, we should
And
see how much the average mayor of these places makes, so we can see what these actually we are have all these little separate cities or 500 school districts, not over 500 school districts, not for the cities but for the school districts, because we see who what you know, and what I want to be very clear about is I do think school superintendents should be paid money. I do think you should spend money on your schools. I totally believe that. But I don't believe we need 500 school attendants for districts that have 500 people. I think about my friend in Maine, and we were talking about this situation. Well, actually, we were talking about Montclair, and they're missing $19 million. And he was like, and I said, this their school board doesn't make any money. I said, in LA, the school board gets paid $125,000. And this guy from Maine was like, oh my gosh, we don't even pay our school board. Like that's normal, right? And then he explained that his school district has 744 people, which was interesting because you said that there are some school districts in New Jersey that only have 500 people.
yeah, well, I looked up we in regards to local control. I looked up specifically Oxford because I used to live in Oxford. Oxford is in Warren County. It has a population of 2,477. Oxford School District serves 260 students. And Oxford is next to another town, Washington, that is not much bigger. It's like 7,000 people in comparison to 2,000 people, but it's much more diverse. It has a much more like walkable area than Oxford does. And when I think about the history of Oxford and how well known it has been for having a Klan presence, when you talk about local control with the school districts, what are you trying to control in your children?
Yes, and I always think it's interesting when in New Jersey they're like diverse. What do you mean? What do you mean by diverse? And I like when they call Newark diverse. And I said, what do you mean diverse? Do you mean black people? Because that's what you do. You mean black people?
I mean, there's not just white people in Warren County, at least in regards to Warren County,
Yeah,
Washington is diverse. Like it means that there's not just white people that live there.
there's not just white people. I think it's funny, like in LA, when they'll call East LA diverse. And I go, East LA has 99% Mexicans or Latinos. That's not diverse. So what do you mean? Anyway, so I always like to clarify, like, what do you mean? Like they're actually diverse people, or do you mean just not white people? Um,
Not just white people.
not just white people. And I think the thing about Essex County, which is interesting, and and I'm going to bring this up because I don't think people outside of New Jersey know this, because I didn't know this. Before I moved to New Jersey, what I knew about Essex County was The Sopranos. Okay, yes, that's a stereotype. That's horrible. And I mean, I didn't mean for it to be like, but that's all I knew because I didn't know about New Jersey. All I knew was The Sopranos, and that's it. And when I came to New Jersey, I'm sorry, when I came to New Jersey, and there were so many black people. Okay, everybody who's from New Jersey is like, well, how would you not know there are black people here? How the hell would I know? Your NewJersey.com is literally so racist. They're so racist. They have a separate like Jim Crow section for black people called Mosaic. Because
Yes.
every time they bring up black people on their regular page, it's just like just just tons, thousands of comments, racist comments. Black people suck. We hate black people. Blah blah blah. So they had to have a separate section, just like Jim Crow, for black people. So of course, I didn't know there were black people there because they don't write about black people in New Jersey. They don't talk about black people in New Jersey. I only knew there were black people and I'll put it this way. In the whole Essex, Montclair, New Jersey, the biggest population of people are black people. Oh,
Yeah.
what? I was so shocked. I took a picture when I went to Newark. I took a picture and sent it to my mom. I said, "Mommy, it's so black here. The Newark Museum doesn't even have a black section because the whole town is black. So it's just the Newark Museum and it's just black people. Except later I realized that there was no black people like really running it, but it's like anyway, I don't want to get into that conversation because I'm trying to be friends with people and pretend like I don't notice what is going on. But yes, Essex County is super black. Okay, no one wants to talk to you about that. It's super black. It's more black than LA. Any parts of LA is or are. And oh, also Brooklyn. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going off topic, but I want to tell people stuff. When you're in LA and you're like black and someone from New York is like, oh my God, you remind me of Brooklyn. They're not talking about fashion. They just mean that Brooklyn has black people, or it used to. And they're like, you're black. And they know you. And they knew that there were black people in Brooklyn. So that's all that means. Because for a long, I thought I went to Brooklyn assuming people were going to act like me and like have my style. And like, I went there and it was just black people there that didn't act like me at all because they were from Brooklyn. And not only that, they were like, they pegged me as not being from there. They were like, where the hell are you from? And I was like, LA. I was like, I'm from LA. So the people in Brooklyn didn't even think of me as being part of their community. So essentially, when I was told all these times for so many years that I reminded people of Brooklyn, they were just naming the only place they knew that they knew other black people. And now I feel really dumb because for so long I was like, I can't wait to go to Brooklyn. There's all these cool black people who are just like me. I mean, they are cool, but it wasn't like I thought it. I didn't. Okay, never mind. Anyway, anyway, so Kimberly, why do you think? Do you think Essex as one school district would be a good idea?
I do think that it would be a good idea. I think that it would be less likely for money to suddenly come up missing when we have a consolidated school district. I think that it would also help drop property taxes for people in the that also property taxes, people don't like to talk about it, but property taxes also helps to reflect what renters pay and rent. So that could potentially drop property taxes, which could also drop rental rates across the county. And I think that it would be a good sharing of resources because we all know that there's areas of Essex County that have some of the highest property taxes in the entire country, and they get that money gets funneled into these little tiny school districts that are very segregated from the greater Essex County as a whole. And that would eliminate that issue, and there would be better resources for cities like East Orange and Newark, which their school districts traditionally suffer from a lack of funds.
No, it's true. And here is the thing. You have a situation where the reason why okay, think about the reason why Glen Ridge, Montclair, all these places are worth a lot of money is because of its proximity to New York. And the proximity to New York is facilitated by Penn Newark, by Jersey City, the Path, all these areas. So the thing about Newark and Jersey City and a lot of these areas that are have been traditionally redlined and underserved. Okay, I know Jersey City is weird now, but at one point it was underserved and it was redlined and things like that. And as we know, they have $250 million missing. So essentially, they were so dedicated in essentially, turning that place from black to something else. They were willing to give $250 million to rich people. I don't know how it happened, but I think it was just anyway. We already talked about that. But if we think about Penn Newark, we think about the commerce that comes in through the ports, and how that money gets skipped. That money goes to the county and not necessarily to Newark School District. It doesn't necessarily go to certain school districts. Essentially, we should all be sharing this money. This whole idea that your home, the reason why people's homes in Montclair and Glenridge are worth what they are worth is because they are close to Manhattan, because they are close to New York City. It's not just because they're there, and because they're close to commerce. And the fact of the matter is that it should be one district. It shouldn't be all these several districts, because I think about Glen Ridge. They don't have a fire department, so they get Bloomfield or Montclair. They essentially go to the cities next door and go, who can give us the best price to have a fire department? And then you have people who have special needs. You have low incidence disabilities, and low incidence means that less than 2% of the population has them. So if you have separate school districts, you have a situation where somebody has Angelman syndrome. Well, because of IDEA, you still have to have a teacher for that person. Well, because you have all these separate school districts, you may have one teacher because of that one. You don't have to hire one teacher to hire the one kid that has Angelman syndrome, because low incidence disability means less than 2% of the people have them. So you're not going to have enough money to have an entire class. But if you had a county system, you could be like, oh, this is a Essex County, Essex County. Essentially, you could have a teacher and you could have a class, and you could have, kids that have, more low incidence disabilities. You could have them in one class, or you could have them on one campus, so they could more easily integrate into the population. But also, you're not having a situation where you have one teacher for one low incident child who has one low incidence, or you have a situation where you can't properly integrate special education children because you just don't have the staff to do so. So, I mean, there are so many issues that you could alleviate with one school district, especially with Essex. It doesn't make any sense. It's such a small area. Go ahead.
And it's ridiculous that you can drive like 5, 10 minutes and pass through like a handful of different school districts.
Not just schools. I know people are like probably listening. They're like, "You mean schools?" No,
No.
literally school districts. I can pass through Bloomfield, Bellevue, Montclair, Glen Ridge, Newark, 5 school districts with literally within a, I'm not exaggerating, a 10-minute drive. That is wild. I actually got East Orange. Depending
Yeah.
on which way I go, I can pass 6 school districts, not 6 schools, 6 separate school districts with 6 separate superintendents with 6 separate budgets. And I want to bring up another thing, because a lot of people want to believe, and here's the thing: we're in New Jersey. This is like, I feel like this is the state of cynicism. So we're always like, yes, everybody's robbing people. And actually, from what I've seen, New Jersey is actually one of the most, okay, no one's going to believe this, but some of the most honest people I've ever met have been in New Jersey. I know you guys have a history of doing some shady stuff. There are some shady people here, but there's shady people everywhere. But usually people here are trying to do well. And the reason I bring this up is because I want to, as I always want to do, I want to bring up Chris Christie. He did not fund the schools for literally his whole term, almost 10 years. Okay. And I'm going to use this example. I didn't do the calculation for the school, but I'll use this for example. Chris Christie did not fund the pensions for over like almost a decade. So what happened was that essentially they have to do catch up now, because you can't tell people you can work somewhere and now you've got a pension and now just kidding, you don't. You can't do
Yeah.
that. So essentially now what New Jersey is doing is paying $7 billion a year for the pensions. Now New York pays $1 billion. But if Chris Christie no, New York pays $2 billion. If Chris Christie had paid what he was supposed to, New Jersey would be paying $1 billion right now in pensions. So essentially, the $6 billion, that $7 billion that we're paying, $6 billion of that is money that we didn't pay. So the thing is that with our school districts, we're in the same situation. So a lot of these school districts, what was happening was they were getting shorted, and then they were doing a lot of like interesting math to they were doing new math in order to make it work, and hoping that eventually, kind of like, that thing where you have two bank accounts and you're like paying stuff and you're kind of doing stuff. It's kind of illegal, kind of not
You're
illegal.
robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, it's only illegal if you
That's what
get
my
caught.
mom would say.
Yeah, it's only illegal if you get caught. Now, people probably thought you can't just keep not funding it, right? Because we have the New Jersey Constitution said you have to fund it, right? Kristen, you can't just keep not funding it. But you know what he did? He just kept not funding it. That was his way of balancing the budget, just not funding the schools, just essentially all. So essentially, a
Yeah,
lot of this.
essentially he's just like fuck them kids.
Yeah, exactly. He was really essentially like, fuck those kids. That's exactly what happened. So if you look at it, it's not, there are so many, every time we open up, we don't have to open the paper, but every time we open up the internet, we go, oh, another school district is biting the dust. Another school district, another school district. Now, it could be conceivable, which some people are like, well, maybe everybody was robbing at the same time. Okay, yeah, maybe it was a whole thing where every single business manager of every single school in New Jersey were all getting together, had a big conspiracy that they were going to like rob everybody at the exact same time. That could have been it. But possibly we could consider that what happened was they defunded the schools, COVID happened, they were able to do some stuff, and then it all just fell apart at the exact same, kind of like right now with the whole subprime one with the cars. Well, they're like, well, everybody just decided to not pay their bill at the same time. It must be a conspiracy. Yeah, the conspiracy is called, structural issues that are not like somebody being evil. But the thing is this, we had that situation. Some people were totally fine with Chris Christie essentially robbing us. And now we want to play this game like irresponsible. But the irresponsibility started with Chris Christie, and you were totally fine with him not doing that. So now we're in a situation because you didn't take care of it. You let this man rob you. Now we have to do something. We have to consolidate. We have to consolidate the districts. And I know people are really upset with that, but you should have been upset when Chris Christie just was like, I'm not paying.
As,
Go ahead.
especially when more than 200 school districts out of the 500 school districts enroll fewer than 500 students. Like that's just ridiculous. Like that the school budget alone in those townships must be like exorbitant for the size of those townships.
I'm just kind of like, I think about Patterson. And how if you look at Patterson and you look at places like and Clifton and Passaic have a separate, isn't Clifton in the middle of Patterson?
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
Clifton's in the middle of Patterson. And it's like we would do it, and I'll tell you something. I go to Clifton all the time. It's so weird the way it's shaped. The children hang out at Target. Okay, yeah, no, I'm not supposed to be going to Target. Okay, I'm not really going to Target, but when I did go to Target, the kids hung out in Target because they have nowhere to hang out at
That sucks.
because they're in the middle of Patterson, but they can't go to Patterson because it's Patterson, and there are people there who are not white. and they can't go. They're like, oh no, my mom says I can't go to Patterson. It's scary. I'm not saying that Patterson is like all like, stardust and whatever. It
I work in Patterson, like, and I work in a what I would say is a relatively safe area of Patterson. Like, I feel comfortable when I have to walk to my car at 10 o'clock at night. Like, the people that I've encountered at nighttime have been friendly. Like, I haven't had any issues or felt like unsafe at all.
Yeah. So I should say that I think it's Passaic that's surrounded by Clifton, but I guess for Clifton, Passaic, Patterson is the same thing. Um, I am, but yeah. So it's just it's I, William Carlos William is from Patterson. There's a famous poem about Patterson, New Jersey. He's a famous beat poet, and I also knew about Patterson because of this poem. And I actually used to go to a whole bunch of poetry stuff in Patterson. Kind of like just getting off the subject. But the thing is that, wow, wouldn't it be great if Patterson was um wouldn't it be great if Patterson was, one district that included Clifton and Passaic? And people are like, oh, it would be horrible. It wouldn't be horrible. The thing is that if we did not do the situation where we had this crazy racism, crazy classism, crazy not sharing, we wouldn't have a situation where we have some districts that are so horrible and some districts that are just kind of, well, I mean, you know what? We're all losing. We're all losing because, you know, I think about in rural New Jersey, they did not fund your schools. They
No.
didn't fund your schools, and they could if we had a more of a regional thing.
And I
The
did go to a regional high school. Like the first high school that I went to, I graduated from the county tech school, but the high school that was in my town was North Warren Regional High School. Because a lot of those townships, even though they had their own elementary school districts, they didn't have the resources to have a high school. So there was a regional high school for the north part of Warren County.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's something that's really good that they should have that kind of, they should have, well, you know what? That should be something that they should do in urban areas too. I think they kind of had to do it in your area because it was so small.
Yeah.
Overall, they're like, we got two kids. What should we do? Because they couldn't, and it probably was just random. Whichever year the people had kids, then they had like lots of students. And then, as you know, I don't know if you guys know this, for us in Generation X, people have stopped having kids, and
Yes.
so a bunch
Much
of
like
school. Go
much
ahead.
like right now too.
Yeah. So a bunch of people they had to close a bunch of schools. So all the schools they built for the baby boomers, they're like, oh, there are no kids. So they had to close a bunch of schools, and it got real interesting because they just thought, and then yeah, college got interesting. Everything got really interesting. Um, I'm sorry, I had to do this really quick. But I mean, and if we think about the foundation of things, why do we have a situation in New Jersey where we have 500 schools? And we have to talk about the fact that a lot of this has to do with suburbanization, racism, redlining, people escaping New York. Oh my God, I'm escaping New York. I'm doing that because I want to get away from these people. So now I gotta have we gotta have our schools. We gotta protect our schools. And I think it made it so that people protected the schools or viewed what they were doing as protecting the schools way more extreme than they have in other places. I don't think there's any place in the United States that have the kind of taxes that they have in New Jersey just for the school districts. I
And
mean,
like we should invest in our schools. We have some of the best test scores in the country. Like we have great schools in New Jersey. We have great students in New Jersey, but it would be far more of an investment in our kids' future if we shared more of the resources rather than siloing it off only for these people, only for those people. And that's what these little tiny communities do.
yeah, it's true. Like it is. I mean, I think about, um, you know, I think okay, I'll use a friend that we had. Um, we had a friend, a mutual friend. I won't bring up who it is, but this person lived in Maywood. They were in Maywood and they had a child, and they were a renter, and they moved to Montclair because the school district was so good. And they sacrificed and they suffered, in regards to like paying the rent so their kid could have a good education. Because with a good education, you could do anything in the United States. Well, at least at one point. Um, and then I thought was really interesting is that, Chris Christie comes and destroys the funding formula. And then Montclair got to a point where they're in the deficit. And this person essentially voted no to help save the schools because their kid had graduated.
Oh, so it doesn't matter to them anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to them anymore because it's like, and I just think that's interesting. Is an interesting thing. And I mean, I think we have a lot of that in New Jersey where I'll take care of my kid. I don't want to take care of anyone else. Um, and this is a person who was on the left who organized to vote to essentially screw those kids. And I feel this way. Did you organize under Christie when he didn't fund the schools and essentially create a situation where you were going to harm people? And the thing I think about is this is that there are a lot of hardworking working class people that went to my I mean it did in regards to like kind of like plugging the gap right now. That part did pass, but it amazed me how many people who were on the left who thought whose kids graduated who are like, I don't care now. But it also kind of like goes to this very selfish it shows how local control looks how individualism looks. I don't have kids. My taxes paid for my schools. And I'm happy that my taxes pay for my schools. And I do know that people are like, well, what about rent? But I have never I have never seen a situation where they defunded the schools like Prop 13 in California and then the rent become cheaper. It's weird how you defund the schools and get people uneducated and they are able to be they're actually less effective at fighting hegemony. Isn't that weird how that works?
It's almost like it's a grand plan or something.
It's almost like defund the schools, empower hegemony and development. I feel like that's very interesting. And you know, I know a lot of people are just kind of like, well, if we, I'm just saying, in my own head, um, the journey. I guess okay. Look, if you are moderate, I literally understand. I understand you not wanting to fund the school because your kid got yours. Um, but if for somebody on the left to engage in consequentialism, which means that the end goal is more important than the journey, is wild to me. It's a wild, wild concept. Um, I don't think I don't understand it. I literally don't understand it. I've never remember one. They have certain laws in regards that are in place that state you can't just randomly just raise the rent. You can't just randomly. That's not a thing. That's not even a thing. And the reason why people, I mean, anyway, it doesn't matter. But after World War II, after suburbanization, we have a situation where we have created this horrible system, and it's horrible for everybody because yes, the rent, the tax dollars, the taxes for our houses out here are very expensive. But also, I always want to tell people this: if you own a house and if you have kids, these taxes that you pay are cheaper than private school. And people are just kind of like, and I want to like explain to them like, I got to explain to you how California works. You got to pay for private school. You have to pay for cheerleading. You have to pay for music lessons. You have to pay for everything. To have a child, you have to, the amount of money that you have to spend that you don't have to here. Um, I'm not saying every school district is great here, but let's pretend that racism doesn't exist. If we didn't look at racism and just looked at the culturally suburban part of New Jersey, it's a paradise. Okay, I'm sorry, not the rural part, but that's only 5%. Say we acted like rural New Jersey did not exist. I'm sorry. I always feel like Kimberly, I feel like you got fucked over. I'm sorry. I really do. When I
I
hear
did,
about like when I hear about what happened, I was like, what in the what?
I
What?
do too.
I really do. I really do. And the thing is that the thing I love about you, Kimberly, is that you never really complain about it, but I really feel like you should. Um,
Thank you.
I really feel like you should be more mad. But I'm glad that you're not. I'm glad that you're not, but you should be more mad. But I
I'm
think about
plugging
my
along.
yeah, I think about my cousin, not my cousin. Think about Chaz's cousin, my husband. They moved to Orange County, California, and they sent their kids. And keep in mind, Orange County is a nice neighborhood, but Beverly Hills School District was not nice. Newport, I mean, put this way, it's not nice the way New Jersey schools are nice. People always think, oh, if you're in rich area in LA, that your schools are nice. No, it's not. Okay, did you guys watch Clueless? Did you see the movie Clueless at Beverly Hills High School and how they were just dressed up and like looking cute and stuff and whatever? Yes, that's exactly how having money and being in a nice neighborhood was. You weren't really people were just wearing clothes and like showing off their cars. My husband's cousins lived in Newport Beach, and they went to a private school. It cost them like $50,000 a year to go to this private school. So I'm just saying that what people have in New Jersey is wonderful, but you know what? You guys, you would if you didn't, if people were not okay. The schools in New Jersey, suburban New Jersey, are very nice. They're actually very nice. They are probably the best schools I've ever seen. And I was a education consultant for a long time. So I know this. Okay. And I know people are like complaining all the time. They're like, oh, it sucks. I'm like, no, this is so nice. Essentially, some of the best minds in the United States come out of New Jersey. I guess no one would believe me, but it is.
I used to accompany a patient to Bernard Tie, and wow, that is a high school. Like that looks like it's like the high school in movies. Like
No, yeah,
like
yeah, but it's just even like I said, the elementary schools they have assistants, not just in special education classes. Like the kindergarten teachers have like two assistants. It's like it's nice, but the thing is, this is that even though it is nice, even though it is wonderful, I promise people, your schools would still be nice if you shared. It would still. I don't see how Essex County being one district would just make it. It would just economies of scale. You could get even more if you shared. You could get more. I know it's this fear of they have in our society we have this whole in-group out-group thing, and so we have this real fear of sharing. I don't want to share. I would rather they did a study and that people would rather harm themselves than share with what they perceive as the out-group.
that's so sad to me because we're talking about when we talk about schools, we're talking about children. And we're talking about the future of our state, the future of our country, and the future of our world. Like that's, and I don't have children either. And I know that part of what I pay for rent goes to property taxes that pay for the school district and the city that I live in. Like that's why wouldn't you want to invest in the future? Like that seems so sad and so selfish to me that people are like so grab hands with money when it comes to education.
And also, if they made it so it was one school district, they would save money. Everyone would save money. The homeowners, the alleged all the yeah they would actually make the rent go down. It's not going to go down, but I mean you have to fight for that. But I'm saying the property taxes would go down if it was one school district. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that, and I don't think it would be punishing anybody. I think it would be a wonderful thing, and I think it would also help in getting rid of this horrible segregation we have in New Jersey that doesn't need to exist. It doesn't need to exist in this new world. I mean, we have a great state. And this consolidation is something that we would save money on administrative cost. We would save money on like just sharing resources for transportation. Think about if the transportation situation, and I think there's another thing too. Do you know in Los Angeles there is no school bus? When I saw that, I was like, what do you mean a school bus? If you live less than a mile away from the school, you get a school bus. I was like, what? What? What do you mean you get a school bus? They're like no, that doesn't happen in LA. No, you just your parents drop you off or you take the bus. The and you know how our buses work in California. They don't. In Los Angeles, they don't work. I
My
was
yeah,
like,
that's how my ex and his friends got to high school is they took the bus, like the city bus.
you have to, yeah, this is why it's like, you guys have a school bus for people who are not disabled? Like there's just for regular kids? That's or typical. That's what they call it, typical kid. Yeah, no, that's not a thing in Los Angeles. So that's the whole people want to pay LA property taxes. No, you don't.
No,
You couldn't afford to be Angelino. You can't. Because the reason why I lived in Los Angeles because my mom didn't have to work because we were fifth generation Angelinos. Okay, so like we weren't paying the prop. No, you couldn't afford the people in New Jersey. No, there's no way you couldn't do LA because you couldn't even have a job. If you're a woman, if you had kids, you couldn't have a job because you've got to drive your kids everywhere, or they'd have to take the bus.
we can't have that.
We can't take my when I gave up my car, and I'm going off topic. But when I gave up my car because I saw inconvenient truth, my parents thought I was going to be homeless. They were just like, "You can't just not have a car. You can't just not have a car. That's just you can't do that." So yeah, in LA, they don't have buses for the public schools. You got to figure out your own way to get there. There are no music. You pay. I had private violin lessons because we didn't have stuff in
That's
school.
so crazy to me. Like I was like part of orchestra, like, and I mean we complained about school, but like we had those resources. The county tech school didn't have like a an arts or theater program, but that it was at county tech school you had your shop that you worked on. But that's crazy to me that like it wasn't even an option for you.
No, the option was you pay for it. That's your option. If you didn't have money, you could just use drugs. Anyway, that was just I'm not even joking. It was bad. It was bad. It was real bad. They really just, they really it was a bad thing. Anyway, but I think this could be a beautiful thing. Regional high schools, regional band programs, art programs. I think it's horrible that they're closing the Mandarin program in Montclair. I think that's one of the programs they're looking at. They keep talking about. I think the thing that just kind of pissed me off really with Montclair. People kept talking about the Mandarin program. Yeah, you don't need to learn Mandarin.
It smacks of racism.
It's something about it. It just pissed me off. I don't know what it was. Like why they keep bringing up the Mandarin program? What is your issue with that? That's like a whole big chunk of the world that speaks Mandarin.
Seriously. No, that's like it's and with the way that like China is growing technologically and economically, like it's for kids that want to go into business, it behooves them to learn Mandarin.
Yeah, it was kind of real nasty. I didn't like it was like yeah, just anti-Chinese, anti-Asian. I feel like the anti-Mandarin thing is an anti-Asian type situation, even though I'm not even talking about that right now, but it's like why would that be the thing that you keep bringing up? Anyway, With that, we have to really wrap this up. And I know people are kind of going to probably be unhappy, but you know what? This would be a good thing. This is not even me being like petty. Like we're not being petty.
No,
This
we
is
think that
like,
this is a good thing for the future of New Jersey.
I mean, unless you like paying $20,000 in property taxes, do you like that? If you do, hey, whatever. But I'm just saying that
More power to you.
more power to you. But I bet you we could cut property taxes in half with a consolidated Essex County school district. And if we want to be really frisky, we can have a Essex Hudson school district
Ooh.
com- combined with Jersey City and, wrap this up and have an Essex Hudson County, um, yeah, and that would be wonderful. We could save so much money doing that. And
I
then we
feel
could go ahead,
I feel like a lot of people need to go back to kindergarten and learn about sharing again.
or math. Go back,
The-
go back and learn about math, learn about math, how math works. Economies of scale is a thing. It exists. I know. I love how people in New Jersey like it's different in New Jersey. Oh, numbers work different in New Jersey.
There's a force field where like it's different. You don't understand.
I don't understand the
The
number.
laws of physics don't apply to New Jersey.
They do not, and so we would not save money. We would just have black people in school. That's it. That's the only, and I can't even. I think it's worth. I think it's worth $30,000 property taxes. If you have to raise it $30,000 to keep them out, we'll do that. Well, that's not everybody. So I think that's kind of what happens should happen, and we'll as soon as and I think we're gonna have to have some conversations about Montclair School District and Bloomfield because I heard Bloomfield School District, owing to the calculations, might lose 2% of what they were getting before. And people are scoring, oh my God, that's property tax being raised up. And I always say racism is expensive, very
Yes,
expensive.
it is. Racism is very expensive.
In all kinds of ways. And with that, we're going to wrap up. So thank you all for listening. We appreciate you. Remember to subscribe to Autofixation on YouTube, subscribe to Autofixation on D1011, and subscribe to our Substack.
And follow us on Spotify.
Oh my God, yes. And that too. We got so much stuff. That's right. Follow us everywhere. Okay. We'll talk to you soon. All righty.
Thanks for listening.
Bye bye.